Welcome to the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. I'm Coach Lisa Callahan, a recovered emotional eater. I ended decades of self-inflicted struggles with food through taking a journey of self-discovery, which revealed the secrets of what was going on underneath the food. Throughout this podcast, we'll explore topics that are rarely talked about, like low self-esteem, lack of confidence, people-pleasing, and decades of self-sabotaging behaviors. Rather than just focusing on the food, we'll dive deeper into aspects of who you are as a person and how you ended up relying on food for comfort to begin with. My mission is simple: to empower women to regain their confidence and prioritize self-love, regardless of the number on the scale. Discover what you've really been craving, and trust me, it's not about the food. This podcast is based on insights shared from the Women's Emotional Eating Community Support Group on Facebook, so be sure to check out the show notes for the link to the group and a complimentary gift just for you. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Hey, welcome to another fun and insightful episode of the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. The topic today is, why am I eating in secret? This episode is something I really know a thing or two about, since I spent a lot of time eating alone. In fact, I never ever would eat anything that I didn't consider to be healthy or a diet food in public. So it was like there was two of me: the person that I showed the world, and then the secret person that I only showed to myself. The interesting thing is, the desperate person who wanted so much for the world to see this perfect version of myself, and I wanted to be that way all the time, I couldn't figure out why the worst version of myself, the version of myself that I actually hated, the one that I called names, the one that I constantly felt like was falling off track, the one that I was so mad at day after day, feeling defeated and embarrassed and annoyed, and most of the time just freaking angry, like super angry with myself, like beating myself up. Why did you do that? What's wrong with you? Like that was the version that I only showed myself. Every morning, I would have the same exact thought: today's going to be a good day. And then I would plan and prepare all of my meals, make certain that if I was on a shake or a bar system, that I had everything lined up, all my little pills and my nutrition things. I had already done my weigh-in and, made sure that everything was all set for the perfect day. And then what would happen is I'd be very proud of myself for most of the day. So with every good thing that I did, it was like it gave myself like a point. It was like, oh, look, okay, I took these, pills that are supposed to make me not hungry, and oh, wow, they're really working. Like, this is awesome. I feel really good. Oh, look, I only had like a half of a salad or whatever. Like, I basically spent most of the day playing these little games with myself, thinking that I was doing so good. And then somewhere along the line, I would convince myself that either because I had done so good, or that maybe someone else needed something, like the kids needed like cookies or whatever in the house, or chips or something. What would end up happening is that I would convince myself that it was like okay to just eat like one cookie, like no big deal, or one, couple of chips. Like, this is fine. Like, I did so good all day. Look at what I did. And then wham, it was like the minute that I did that, I would spin uncontrollably into a place where suddenly, without my knowing what was happening, like I really felt like the rug was being pulled out from under me. Suddenly, I fell into this rampage cycle where then I'd spend kind of hours hurting myself, like pummeling myself by hunting. And I was hunting for anything that I could get my hands on, because by that time I had already convinced myself that I'd screwed up. And all of the, good intentions that I had the moment that I woke up, that I was going to do all these great things, and everything that I was showing outside in public, when I was alone in the house, hunting for all kinds of garbage, like whatever I could find in the house, anything, even rummaging through my kids' rooms like a thief, trying to find like old Christmas candy that they had hidden somewhere, which I did find because my kids knew that they had to hide things from me. They were like, if I'm going to keep these, Ghirardelli chocolates that mom gave me for Hanukkah or Christmas, like I better hide them well. And let me tell you something, in those moments, which was pretty much every day, I would find stuff all over the place. And it's like, even if I didn't find anything, I would make something up. Like I'd manage to like scrape out like, I don't know, old syrup or something, or I'd eat sugar like right out of the bag and I'd put it on like a rice cake with peanut butter and I'd like pour sugar all over it, or I'd make oatmeal and like douse it with honey, like so much that, it was because of the sugar that I was hunting for this. And then it was like my mission became to, fill myself up with all of this crap. Well, meanwhile, it was like this tunnel vision of, hunting for this food was a complete opposite. It was a contradiction to what I had woken up in the morning telling myself that I wanted to do. And again, I never showed that side of myself to anybody else. So picture this scenario and maybe you can relate to this. I'd wake up in the morning, tell myself in the morning that I was going to do so amazing. And then I would end up in a completely different place than what I had started out to. So this is where the secret eating comes in, because there's a mismatch of integrity. There's a mismatch of intentions. And at the time that I was doing this, and this is why I couldn't understand, it was like, why am I secret eating? Like, if I'm going to have a cookie or a piece of cake or candy or a chip or whatever, like, I don't know, why do I feel like I have to do this in private? And there was this like piece of me that just felt like it just evaporated. Like everything that I cared about outside when people were watching me, when I was in a restaurant, I wasn't ordering like, hey, can I have 12 cookies? Like I wasn't doing that in public. That was just for me in private. And I couldn't seem to figure out why I always felt like I had to stay on this, very strict track. And then I just would fall like off the track later. And it always happened when I was alone. And I chalked it up to just not having enough willpower, or like, this is a good day and this is a bad day. And I had all of these misconceptions about why this thing was happening by myself. And I never, ever thought in a million years that this was A, fixable, and that B, that the problem had anything to do with anything other than food. Like I blamed it on the food a lot. I was just like, well, if I don't have food in the house, then I won't eat it, which isn't true because like I said, I was like scrummaging through anything I could find. It really had nothing to do with the food. No matter what, I was going to figure out how to get my hands on the feeling that I was going to get after I had that secret binge. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Because I want you to recognize that it's not your intention to put yourself in a position like this where like the worst version of yourself is the one that you're showing only to yourself. That's not your intention. And I want you to think about this with a very like open mindset, because when you're considering that the secret eating has so much to do with the food, and you tell yourself, I can't control myself around this food. The food's just calling my name. I can have so many good days and then suddenly, there's that food there and I just go like off the rails. So I used food as kind of like a weapon in one way, and then a reward in the other way. Like there was no in between, because you can even see where the food rules that were in my head, like I had them throughout the whole morning. I was like, check, check, check. I've done my good thing. I've drank my water. I've eaten my perfect meals. And then I would tell myself that because I had done so quote unquote good, that I then deserved, let's say, this cookie. And then I would tell myself, well, I'll only have one. It's totally fine. Like, it's reasonable for somebody to want to have just one cookie, right? But then it didn't work out that way. And I always did that in private. Trust me if I say this. If I ordered an ice cream out with other people, I'll just have a small, no toppings. It's good, and then and the fat-free, yogurt, the vanilla one, just, yeah. And then people would, look at me like they're getting banana splits and ice cream sundaes. And they're like, wow, Lisa, you're so good. And I'm like, oh, I don't like sweets a lot, And so I lied a lot. I mean, it just seemed like, it was so easy. And it was so easy to say no to myself for the next bite when I was out in public. But then I would take that whole sort of innocent thing that I was telling myself when I was alone. I could eat one cookie. It's totally fine. I can do this. Look how good I've done all day. And then I would take the same exact food that I kind of felt like I was so proud of myself for doing so good all day. And then I would use that as a reward and then spend the rest of the evening sabotaging myself. So it was such a contradiction. And I was trying so hard to desperately stay on track. I have to be honest, though, this whole thing went on for decades, so good 30 years. And I think that if I really think about it very clearly, it was like year after year after year, it was getting harder and harder to stay on that track. And in the last probably 6 to 10 years or so of this binge eating disorder, which I didn't know that I had, it was daily, really. Like, maybe before I could go for months, maybe I'd even gone for a year or so without feeling like I had that, maybe there was a couple of slip ups in between, but I was maybe doing a competition, or I had like a coach that was like monitoring everything I ate, and I was like really on the track. But then oftentimes by myself, it was like, wait a minute, like I had no trust in myself. So I tried to stay on track a lot, and I did so many of the quote unquote normal diet things that people do. I tried every diet, every system, every pill, every tracker, and I felt like I was doing the right thing. But then I also felt like I was the one who could slip that rug out from under me. And then I have no one to blame but myself. So again, it just felt like there was two parts of me, two sides of me. And I never showed that side of me that was totally out of control to anybody else but me. And I hated that version of me. Like, I hated her. And so it's like, here I was, like, doing my best over here to do the things that were good for me and well and healthy. And like, I wanted to do the right thing. And then it was like, I was secretly like blindfolding myself, tripping myself down into what we call in our Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system, a sidewalk hole. That's what we call it. And like doing this repeat pattern over and over again, all while stabbing my own self in the back with like my own knife, And I gave the world the impression that none of that was happening. And so then I saved this version of myself that I considered to be pathetic and weak, out of control, and a total hot mess. Like, that version, I only knew her. So on the outside of me, I looked confident. I mean, I didn't know, I didn't know showing that side of me to the world. That was absolutely terrifying. So I wasn't going to do that at that time. And I just didn't know how to stop this. And if anything, I also didn't really know that it was fixable. Like, at that time, I really didn't know that the secret eating, like, it was just my secret. So it wasn't like I was sharing it with anybody. I never spoke about it to a husband, my husband, friends, a therapist. Like I never mentioned it. Like, so I just kept it all in. And that is really, really difficult. So if you're struggling with secret eating and nobody knows, or you at least think nobody knows, I just want to validate that this is really hard, really hard. So just take a deep breath and just know that this is actually fixable. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more through this episode. So I thought that I knew myself so well, and I thought that I just had to be really careful because I knew that if I kept sweets or bad food or junk food in the house, that I truly couldn't trust myself. And at the time, it was true. There was no way. I don't care if somebody in my house said to me, Lisa, this is my Moose Tracks ice cream or whatever, do not touch this. I would go in by myself. I would comb through the thing, taking one chocolate chip here, one little whatever, chocolate chip cookie dough thing there, and I would pack it all back down. I would sneak it. I would hide it. I would make certain that it looked like, at least to my, critical eye, that you couldn't tell that I had gone into this thing. So I was actually betraying people in my house that said, do not touch this. And I would just shave off a piece and cut off a little thing. Or, my kids thought that they had 6 pieces of candy and they ended up with 4. And I don't know, I didn't touch your stuff, So I really had a huge betrayal of myself. And it's like I couldn't seem to stop it. So even if I told myself that I wasn't going to buy anything, I'm not keeping anything in the house, I would do this little sneaky trick. And this is part of the secret eating. So I want you to pull it all together and kind of zoom out and watch yourself in action. Because I would tell myself, that's it, not keeping anything in the house. And then I would tell myself, okay, well, I have to go to the supermarket, and I would go in and telling myself that, I needed something from the store. I needed lettuce, salad, whatever. And then as I was in the store, I would actually convince myself, oh, that's right, the kids need peanut butter cookies, whatever. And I would even tell myself that I was buying the peanut butter ones because I didn't really like them. I liked the vanilla ones more. I was like, I'll buy these peanut butter cookies. I won't eat them. But then I'd end up telling myself to buy those 2 boxes, and I would only come home with 1 because before I got into the car, I could feel it happening, and I was opening the box, and before I got to the car, I'm juggling keys and stuff, and I'm already shoving 4 or 5 cookies in my mouth. And the box never made it home, period. So I was so sneaky, even with myself. I'd convince myself that I needed something from the store. Then I would convince myself to buy something, and it's okay to buy this because I don't really like it. And then even though I didn't really like it, I would eat it anyways. So, tell me, ask yourself, is this relatable? Can you see yourself doing this? And then, it was interesting because once I started on that, then what would happen is that the rest of the night I would just pick, and it was just then I was just like screw it. It did, I was done, and then I'd end up picking on things for the rest of the night. And the whole time I was doing that, I would tell myself, well, tomorrow will be a better day, and then because I never did this whole feeding thing in front of anybody, I'd have these specific times, right? So I would eat really good all day. Then it was from 1 to 3, before the kids got home. Then I'd have this little feeding weird window. And then about 8 p.m. when I'd wait to make the kids their lunches. Then I was putting those cookies again in the little baggies. But by that time, it had been a couple of hours since I had had any sugar or anything, because don't forget, the earlier binge was earlier. Then they'd get 2, I'd get 2, they'd get 2, I'd get 2. And that would start that again. And then I'd convince myself when it was like time for me to go to bed, like after everybody was, in their proper places, I would somehow or another tell myself that it was time to go to bed. And then all of a sudden I get this idea in my head and I would say, oh, you know what? Oh, I meant to put in a load of laundry earlier. And then I would go do that. Then I would check my emails. Then oh, shoot, I was supposed to pay that bill. All of a sudden, my mind was like firing with all kinds of things that I was supposed to do, which would land me, in the 11 o'clock to 2 a.m. hour ish, right? Telling myself that I had to do all these things. And then what do you think happened? Well, now I was alone. So then I was like, oh, there's peace. It feels so good. So good. Peace, privacy. And so I would tell myself, because at that time, now I'm looking for something else to eat. And I would tell myself that like I just wanted this peace for myself and that I deserved it. Here's where the interesting part comes in. And here's why I want to share with you that this secret binge eating is going to be leading you towards a subconscious, like an underneath the surface craving for a feeling that you already have about yourself that you don't recognize yet with awareness that you're using the food to get to. So I'll explain that whole thing, but this is what would happen. I would tell myself that now I'm relaxed, I'm peaceful, right? Like remember like the whole thing. It was like, first I'm telling myself that I could trust myself by eating one cookie. That didn't work. That led me to believing that, something wrong with me. I'm fundamentally flawed. Why can't I trust myself? I'm so stupid. Like, so why did I do this? So that leads me to guilt and shame and regret. Darn it, why did I do that? I was doing so good, right? So that was the setup. It was like I told myself, you can trust yourself. Go ahead, have one piece. You're fine. Look at how good you did all day. You're not going to screw up. Bam. Now I'm a screw up. But I told myself I would trust myself, and I ended up with screw up. The second part is, you did so good all day. You deserve this. And then I got out of that, you're a piece of what. Look at you. You're so pathetic. What's wrong with you? So the deserving of like feeling like I deserve this reward ended up being a complete beating. Like I beat myself up mentally, telling myself I was fat and ugly and gross and ugh. So it's like I went in telling myself that I deserved something, some kind of reward, and I ended up with like an emotional beating, right? So those two things are different. And then the third one is really where I told myself, oh, you're going to get peace. This is good. Like peace. It's great. And I got nothing out of it except for absolute panic. Panic. Oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Am I ever going to fix this? This is horrible. Absolute panic, chaos, anxiety. Like, so if you can see the theme here, that it's like I set myself up. I told myself I was going to get trust. I deserved this like good feeling and peace. And then I got out of it, disappointment, anger, upset, complete lack of trust. I got out of it, feeling like a loser and like complete mess, and I got out of it absolute disorder and chaos, right? So you can see where there's contradictions, right? So I told myself I was getting one thing and I ended up getting the other. So, if you can relate to this and you can really think about this, just ask yourself, like, am I doing this to myself? Am I convincing myself that I'll do this for this reason and it sounds so wonderful? And then suddenly it's like the rug is snuck out from under you and you're like battling yourself, knocking yourself out, telling yourself you're horrible, and then convincing yourself that you'll do better next time and that tomorrow's a new day and that, you really you had such a bad day. You just need this sugar fix to calm yourself down a little bit. promising yourself things that you can't keep this promise. I'm never going to eat chocolate again. You're not going to keep that promise ever. So when you tell yourself that, it sets you up for betrayal. Telling yourself that like you'll get back on track. Like, what track? Why do you want to live on a track? And I didn't know this before. Like, I thought that I did want to live on a track because I couldn't see the bigger picture. So if you're doing this to yourself, you're suffering with living in survival mode, period. It just is. It's like an utter, like, I'm going to learn how to swim. And then there's this other side of you that's like, no, you're not. And like pushing your head under the water. And you're just trying like everything you can. But it really feels like you're starting from a place where you're under the water. And maybe you have one of those little yellow sippy straws that's just like above the surface of the water and you're taking small little tiny breaths, but you're really just like surviving. And it sucks. And I've been there, and you can hear my description. It sucks. What I've learned about this, because now I want you to know that it is fixable, right? It absolutely is fixable. And I hope that you can hear that, like, this is not like I didn't make this up from a book, right? I put it together with some, logical, trainings and such through taking a journey of self-discovery. That I did. But I live this. And if I can fix it, so can you. And if you watch any of my other podcast episodes, we have about 5 or 6 of them in there. And that's just a couple of our clients or our students who have fixed their emotional eating habits, their binge eating, their secret eating through taking a journey of self-discovery with us in our Crush That Food Thing Self-Discovery System coaching community, which is a really cool place to be. So if you're doing this, you are suffering with what I call a subconscious craving. So now you might ask, what's a subconscious craving? You want to get a pen and paper? You can write this down. A subconscious craving is a feeling that you are getting as a result of something that you do that is mismatched with what you said you wanted to begin with. The trick is that the subconscious craving is the setup. And if you could see me, you're going to see that I am having little quotes in my hand. It's the setup to the way that you will get to experience that subconscious craving, which is the feeling, and you're just using the food to get to it. So I gave you some examples before about how I told myself, go ahead, have one. I was looking for trust. I can trust myself. And what did I end up with? I ended up with distrust. I ended up with disappointment. I ended up with anger. So the thing that I got was the subconscious craving. I was actually craving disappointment, craving anger, craving distrust. That I already had inside of me, and I was just using the food to get to it. Same thing with the example that I gave before of feeling like I deserve this. I did so good. I deserve a reward, like a gold star or a sticker. But then what did I get? I got, what the heck is wrong with you? You're such a loser. Why can't you just do the right thing? Why do you have to go overboard? What's wrong with you? You're like a bull in a china shop, which I heard my whole life. Last thing. And so the craving was for that, emotional beating, that, fundamental flaw. Like, you're not good. So you don't deserve to feel good because you're not good. So it's like a craving for a feeling underneath that there was already a fundamental flaw. I just used the food to get to it. It was a setup. Same thing on the third example with the peace. Really? I'm going to give myself peace by shoving, a whole tub of ice cream in my mouth at 2:00 in the morning, and then wake up in the morning with heart palpitations and acid reflux and indigestion, and my body's paying for it. How many times have you said that? Ugh, I ate this thing and now my body's paying for it. Really? What do you have against your body? Why would you do that to yourself? You know what I mean? Like if you think about it like this, like if there was, I don't know, I know everybody, has their little fur babies, and a fur baby will not really eat that much more. Like they'll stop, right? Like they're not going to hurt themselves with food. But can you consider force feeding and force feeding and force feeding until like there was an illness or until it like hurt the little doggy or kitten or child? You know what I mean? Like that's cruel. So the fact that you might have gone in with thinking to yourself, oh, this was a good idea. This is great. Like I'll have fun. And then the next day you're kind of like, oh, body's paying for this. Well, you did that, so why did you do that? Why did you do something that was going to end up where you would hurt yourself? Like, why did you do that? So that's a subconscious craving for a feeling that you already have in there and you were just using the food to get to it. And so that we can understand what these subconscious cravings are, and what's like underneath there, you're going to have to zoom out. You're going to actually have to see with awareness what it is that is the result that you're getting that is mismatched from what you say you want. And so how I crushed my food thing really was I started off with like one common feeling that I got every single solitary time. It didn't matter when I ate, what I did, it didn't matter. When I was eating alone and I was eating in those, amounts of food that were like unreasonable and where I felt that like internal, disconnect where I'm up and down and I'm looking, I'm searching, and then I find this thing and now I'm eating this like disgusting chocolate that's been sitting under my kid's mattress for a year, because I found this golden ticket here. I cannot even tell you how many times, like, I had little kids, many years. My baby's actually 19 now. But like when I struggled with this, I mean, the kids were eating the car. I'd find some random or granola bar and be like, "Ooh, thank God, I'm blowing this thing off." I mean, come on, like would I take that disgusting granola bar from the floor and hand it to my kid? That's here you go, brush off the ants, like I wouldn't do that. But then for me, I was like, yay, here I got this little treat. Why would I do that? Like that's something in there that is like taking you into a completely different place. And just know too that, the extremes of where it is that you have experienced this distrust with yourself don't have to be, as extreme as pulling an old granola bar from the floor. I'm just saying that if there are times that you are mismatched between what you say you want and the results that you're getting, there is a subconscious craving that is underneath there that already feels that particular feeling. And what that craving is it's just using the food or the eating in private or the lying about what you've eaten. Listen, I used to come home. Sometimes I would go to a party and the hostess would, do you want me to make you a plate for the kids? Sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Come put it. And I'd have like a plate full of things. And in the car, I would eat the whole thing. And maybe I would save like one thing. And I'd come home and be like, oh, look what Susan gave you. And oh, that's all she gave you? Yeah, that was it. It wasn't that much left over. So, hey, I got you something, completely lying. So if you're doing this, if you're betraying yourself, if you're mismatched from what you say you want and what you're doing, and you're just using the food to get to it, this is a subconscious craving. And it becomes a repeat pattern and habit. And in our Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system, we actually call this repeat pattern and habit the sidewalk hole. It's where you kind of trip down the same hole over and over again. And yet you're not recognizing yet with awareness that you're the one thing that's standing in your own way. And there's like a whole section in our Crush That Food Thing self-discovery system that teaches you all about your subconscious cravings, your subconscious intentions, and your habits and patterns, and like, how did they start and how did they happen, and what are you doing? And once you start to discover your subconscious cravings in recognizing the feelings that you're getting after you told yourself that you weren't going to do that, then we can help you begin to crush your food thing. Now, that part is still a process. Just knowing is not enough. We have to be able to turn the knowing into a doing. We call this the knowing and doing gap. So once we help you to be able to start to zoom out and look at this mismatch, like, you might be listening to this and you might be going, oh my gosh, Lisa, I can't believe it. Like, of course, like that makes so much sense. I'm craving guilt, and then you even might be able to tie it back to a timeline within yourself of something that happened that you feel guilty about. I don't know. It doesn't matter. When we work with you in our self-discovery coaching system, we don't automatically go back to the past. Like, the past leaves clues. That's okay. It's really the future version of you that we want to get to. And I'll give you some thoughts about this and what it is that you're going to want to start to put into your mindset. Because I really want you to start to be able to dream of a future version of yourself who absolutely 1000% can trust herself and unapologetically eat whatever the heck she wants. I have had, since I crushed my food thing, I have had people who have watched me eat, because the past me was always like, I'll have a salad, chicken, dressing on the side, no croutons, that was me. And now, honestly, plenty of times that I'm like, I'll have the quesadilla, because I have no, like, I decide what I want, and there's no right and there's no wrong. I don't overeat. I don't eat a crazy amount of processed foods or junk foods or anything like that. And yet I'm not embarrassed or uncomfortable or ashamed of a decision that I want to make for that particular moment. And I promise you that I never wake up in the morning and think, oh, crap, why did I do that? Oh, I should have gotten a chicken with a salad on the side. I'm so embarrassed. Oh my gosh. I wonder what so-and-so thought that I got that, it doesn't like come to me anymore, because I have healed the subconscious craving that was mismatched from what I said I wanted. And I also do not, under any circumstances, look outside of myself for my good feelings about myself. I'll decide what I feel about myself, and I'll make those decisions absolutely unapologetically. So there's no more two versions of me. I'll make a conscious decision. I'll decide that that's what I want. And there are no more regrets, disappointments, sadness, anger, guilt, shame, blame, regret, nothing. If you can crush this food thing and really open it up into a new space, you will never, ever, ever choose to use food or anything else to hurt yourself again, ever. And so when you start to recognize this whole big picture, you're going to see a whole new version of the truth. And so that's what we help you do. We can help you actually change your own self-image. Because sometimes if you're telling yourself, I can't trust myself, I can't keep that in the house. Are you kidding? I know myself so well. Ugh, please, I'll eat that whole freaking bag. Get it out. I can't do it. No. Or if you tell yourself, it's great. I deserve it. It's a Friday night, whatever. Yeah. Give me drink 3. It's great. I'll worry about it tomorrow. I'll start over again on Monday. I'll do better next time. Those are the setups that will always lead you to a feeling that you already have about yourself that you will get on the flip side of making those promises to yourself that you know that you're going to break. And wrapped up somewhere in there is this idea that you have about yourself, which is your self-image. Your self-image is made up of old stories and your old standards of what you feel like you deserve. And so, like I said, if there's a part of you that feels like you don't really deserve peace, it would be really, really difficult for you to get that peace from the inside. And, sure, you can, I don't know, you can do nice things for yourself. You can go to get a massage, or you can, I don't know, get a pedicure or whatever and be like, I feel so peaceful. But if you're telling yourself that you are going to eat this garbage thing that later on, like if you're telling yourself that's peace, and then later on you're going to feel like garbage about yourself, just know that it's because there's an image of your self-image, like somewhere inside there's a mismatch going on, and somewhere inside you feel like you do not really deserve to have that peace. And that's why the secret eating happens. You don't want to be the one thing that's standing in your own way of experiencing peace. And what you will have to do is you will have to learn how to open your mindset to a new level of awareness, because a closed mind cannot accept any new ideas. And so if what I'm talking about today is completely foreign to you and you have zero idea of what I'm talking about, give yourself grace. It's just a new way of thinking, period. You can't know any more than you know. And once you know better, you will be able to do better. I did not know this stuff either. I learned it through taking a journey of self-discovery. We grow through what we go through. So as we finish off here, I want you to remember this. Dream without restriction. If you feel like you're never going to be able to fix this problem with secret binge eating, I hear you, my friend. As a former personal fitness trainer, nutrition coach, figure competitor, and Ironman athlete, if you had told me years ago that I was going to be here sharing what I just shared with you about picking a stanky granola bar off the ground and eating it, and that I was binge eating 24 cookies when I left a supermarket on the 5-minute ride home by myself, if you had told me that I was going to be sharing this, I I would have thought you were out of your mind. Because underneath there was such a craving for shame. And it was just like locked up in me. Author Brene Brown, she says that shame cannot live in the light, that it can only live in the darkness. So even as I'm talking and you're experiencing, hearing what I'm saying, and you're like, oh dear, I do that too. And your cheeks might be red and you might be embarrassed and you might be thinking, whoa, Lisa, like, don't think I'm ever telling anybody about this. No freaking way. Again, I hear you. But let me just share this. Every secret has a weight to it, and you can only carry that weight around for so long. I used to think that asking for help was a sign of weakness. In fact, I didn't even think that I ever required help, because I was the one that was helping people. I was a personal fitness trainer and a nutrition coach. I was teaching classes. I was writing programs for people. So I don't need any help. I know what to eat. That's great. If you ever hear yourself saying, well, I know what to do, but I'm just not doing it, and yet you're also doing the secret thing and then you're lying about it, we have to talk seriously. Before you take another bite of anything in secret alone, I want you to go into the show notes here. I want you to grab the link that says Food Freedom Discovery Call. I want you to book a call with me. You don't have to work with me. You don't have to do anything. There's no pressure. Please know that. Just let's talk about it so that we can at least verbalize what it is that you've been doing, because I know that it's really hard to share this stuff. And you also want to share it with the right people, I'm going to say. And I don't mean that in a way that like your sister and your best friend and your whatever are not the right people. I'm just saying that sometimes what we end up doing is we end up thinking that we're sharing our struggles, but what we're really doing is we're inviting ourselves to complain about something, and complaints are not conversation. And when you end up complaining about something and your friend or your sister or whatever is like, oh, me too, and then you end up blah, 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 blah about it every day. You're talking about the same, problem. It's like, oh, this is how it is. This is what I do. And especially if you get yourself into a dependent, codependent situation where like a friend or a sister or whatever feels like they're going to help you out and they know what to do and they know how to tell you how to do it. And so you're confessing to only them, but then somehow or another, it's like you require yourself to be like almost like beneath them and like you don't know what to do and they can help you. And then you're complaining about the same things over and over again. And yet nothing that the person's like, just don't buy it. And, oh, come on, we'll go to the gym together. And no, you got to get yourself out of this. You have to get yourself out of this. So if you're talking to someone about it and there's not been any like shifts or change or motivation or spiritual energy or anything that's, changing, that you're figuring this out for yourself, just know that that way is not working, period. And that complaints are not conversation. So we don't want to complain about this. We don't just want to talk about our problems. We actually want to work for solutions. Okay. And if you don't want to talk one-on-one, that's okay too. There's an opportunity here in the show notes. It's called the Mindset Makeover. It's a beginner's self-discovery course. It'll teach you all about what it means to be eating your emotions. And there is a lesson in it that is about what we're talking about today, about the subconscious cravings and the intentions that you might have that are mismatched from what you say you want. All right. And if all else fails, you can always reach me on social media at Coach Lisa Callahan or at Lisa at CoachLisaCallahan.com. So you always know how to get me and how to reach out. All right. I will talk to you next time. Bye for now. All right, my beautiful friend, that brings us to the end of another episode from the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening today and took something from our conversation that you are going to put into immediate action. I love spending time with you and would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with at least one friend today who you think might be struggling too. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any other amazing topics. And please, please do leave me a review. It would mean the world to me. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.